Welcome back. Millions of New Yorkers will soon have to prepare for the end of the pandemic increase in food assistance benefits. This news comes as a shock to many New Yorkers who are currently struggling with food insecurity and inflation. Director of Government Relations at Food Bank for NYC, Nicholas Buess, joins me to discuss how this change will affect those who need it most. Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having Food Bank on.
Now, the federal government declared COVID-19 a public health emergency, issuing an increase in food stamps for those in need. Can you just talk a little bit more about that situation and that effort and what it meant for Americans who were struggling at the time?
Yeah, it's a great question. Throughout the pandemic, there have been a variety of supports for lower income people in New York City and across the country that have helped people keep food on the table. And one really important resource that families had was the maximum benefits for food stamps, or what we now call SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So during the pandemic, households who qualified based on income received the maximum amount of funding for that program for their household. But starting next month in March, families in New York and other states across the country are going to see a reduction in those benefits. And that means that more New Yorkers are going to be struggling with food insecurity.
Now, at the height of the pandemic, we saw several food distribution efforts and pantries here in New York City. I know we saw so many in the Bronx. Can you just talk about the issue of food insecurity and how that affected New Yorkers specifically during the pandemic?
Yeah, so Food Bank for New York City works with about 1,000 community-based organizations across the five boroughs. About 700 of those are food pantries and soup kitchens. But we also work with colleges, we work with public schools, we work with 40 community-based partners to do SNAP assistance outreach and help New Yorkers stay on SNAP, get on SNAP. So, as one of the largest hunger relief organizations in the city, we're concerned about this reduction in SNAP benefits because we saw a spike in need since the start of the pandemic at our community-based organizations. About 80% more visits from before the pandemic than today, and that level of need has maintained throughout the pandemic, and it hasn't gone away. We've seen this unfortunately before during the Great Recession. It took New Yorkers who were lower income almost 10 years to recover from the economic impacts and the fallout of that recession. And for New Yorkers who are lower income, we need to maintain support to make sure that folks can keep food on the table.
Now you've been working, or your organization has been working with, just food insecurity and people who, need these resources. Can you just talk about what it was like probably before the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that food insecurity existed in New York City well before the pandemic. About 1.5, 1.6 million New Yorkers are food insecure. And what that means is that they don't have the resources in their household budget to pay for the food at the grocery store comfortably. So families make compromises, families rely on multiple sources of food, and food pantries and soup kitchens, or the Nutrition Assistance Network in New York City, is a really big part of that. So our food distribution increased to help meet that need during the pandemic. Unfortunately, not only are there going to be these reductions to SNAP benefits, but the overall supply of food at food pantries and soup kitchens is down. A lot of that additional support that we were receiving and distributing to the community was also time limited. So across the city, food pantries and soup kitchens are reporting increased high levels of need, and the overall supply is declining. And the reality is, food banks and food pantries and soup kitchens do an important service, but it's incredibly dwarfed by the scale of food distribution that SNAP provides. Families can go to the grocery store and buy exactly what they need for their household. And food banks are going to continue to work as hard as we can to get the resources out to the community. But we also, like I said, we're concerned.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because prior to that, I genuinely just thought it was only affecting families. So I didn't even think about how this could be affecting organizations who help families, that are struggling with food insecurity. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. Now, can you just talk about how this will affect people who were already receiving food stamps prior to the pandemic relief efforts? Like, are they going to see any changes? Is it going to, I mean, I don't know, disappear for them? Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
So families that qualify based on income and also their household expenses are going to continue to qualify for SNAP. That's not going to change. What is going to change for some households is that they may not receive the maximum amount of benefit that they were receiving during the pandemic. So a good example would be senior citizens. A lot of seniors in New York City and across the country are on fixed incomes. And that fixed income might mean that they can afford to pay for basic necessities, for rent, or maybe in some cases they even own a home, but that's their primary asset. And during the pandemic, those households may have been receiving $100 or $200 of benefits, depending on their household size, but they may drop down if they're based on their income to the minimum amount, which is less than $30 a month. Before the pandemic, what we actually saw is that some seniors did not even seek SNAP assistance because it was such a low amount. Now, we know that every dollar of grocery benefits is important. So we encourage every New Yorker to continue to seek SNAP assistance, to continue to recertify. Food Bank for New York City is there for you, and you can visit our website at foodbanknyc.org, and you can see some of the resources that we have in terms of connecting people to SNAP benefits, as well as other food assistance resources at food pantries and soup kitchens. So we should continue to ensure that New Yorkers can maximize those benefits because they're really, really important, and continue to ensure that the city has the resources that they need to help sign up New Yorkers for SNAP benefits. And of course, our local government has the opportunity to fortify food pantries and soup kitchens. This is city and state resources that go to help do the work that we do every day.
Now, this also comes at a time where so many New Yorkers are, and I think these are New Yorkers of all backgrounds, who are currently dealing with inflation. Can you just talk about, how that is, coupled with this kind of makes it like really a recipe for disaster, or, it makes it really challenging for so many people?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think everybody in the city across the country is experiencing higher costs of food at the grocery store. So, of course, what that means is that our dollars just don't go as far to buy the things that we need to be nutritionally fortified. Of course, we also know that whole foods and fresh foods, those can cost a little bit more. So when we talk to the folks that we help receive SNAP benefits, one of the things that they report is that during the pandemic, with this additional assistance, people were able to buy more fresh fruits and vegetables. But we're seeing an increase of about 10% year over year in the cost of food at groceries, the cost of groceries in the city and across the country. So, that means those dollars are not going as far. Now, the president and his administration have taken an important step in increasing the way or affecting the way that those benefits are calculated to make it a little bit better for families. But Congress has a really important opportunity this year to negotiate a farm bill that really prioritizes the nutrition needs of people across the country. So we're going to keep talking to our congressional delegation and our senator, particularly Senator Gillibrand, has been incredibly powerful advocate for ensuring that people across the country have SNAP benefits. So we're going to continue to partner with them and advocate for a strong farm bill that prioritizes the needs of lower income people in the country.
And I'm really glad that you brought up nutrition. I think that's an important factor that sometimes often gets left out. It's access to healthy food, because I know here in the Bronx we are considered number 62, which means that we have the lowest health outcomes. Can you just talk about how that access to nutritious food also has a lot to do with food insecurity?
Yeah, so food insecurity really is about resources, but we think about sort of the choices that families make when they receive SNAP benefits. They can go to the grocery store and choose exactly what is best for them. So that can be food that is, culturally relevant if people are keeping kosher or halal, for instance, as a lot of New Yorkers are, or that can be the fruits and vegetables folks like to eat, or the proteins folks like to eat. So SNAP is really our most effective and efficient way for families to get the types of food that make the most sense for them. At food pantries and soup kitchens, we work really hard with a lot of our network to ensure that we have the produce and the protein available for New Yorkers, as well as other staples, of course, that folks need, like pastas and cereals and things like that. So we work really hard with our network to provide a well balanced supply at the shelves of our food pantries across the city.
Now, what can low income families do? Seniors, all the people that are going to be affected by this, what can they do to cope with this loss of resources?
Well, I think number one is that families should make sure that they're maximizing their benefits. So that means reviewing your household income and expenses and making sure that you've connected with someone who can help you keep your SNAP profile up to date. Food Bank for New York City has that service. We work with other organizations across the city that can help make sure that all of those expenses that you have, including healthcare expenses, all of that gets calculated into your budget to make sure that the benefits that you qualify for are accurately reflected. So that's number one. Number two, I would say to continue to do advocacy. You can visit our website. We have got an advocacy page and send a letter to your member of Congress to express the importance of this benefit for their household or for all households across the city. Um, and I think for families that are in immediate crisis, certainly visiting emergency food programs is important. We're going to continue to serve as we have throughout the pandemic. We're going to continue to try to maximize the food available at food pantries and soup kitchens. We have a food program locator on our website. Folks can check out. It's got the hours of food programs in every neighborhood across the city. So folks can call up, and if they're a new visitor, I encourage people to call the phone number that's to that program and ask them what their process is for visiting for the first time.
Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me.
It's been enjoyable to talk to you. Thank you so much for putting a light on this important issue.
To stay informed about the work Food Bank for NYC is doing, please go to their website at www.foodbanknyc.org or follow them on social media at foodbank, the number 4, NYC. Stay tuned, we have more open right after this.